All right, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, live from the upper room. Hope everyone's doing fantastic today. The Parashots are back on. We had to do a brief hiatus because of my father's birthday weekend. We went out of town, so we didn't get to cover this last week. But I'm excited to get back into it. Yay. We're covering the next portion of Exodus, which should be interesting. I think we're hitting the plagues in this go round, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Where is it? Just have to pull up something really quick. Old Testament. Thought I had everything pulled up and ready, but looks like something shut down. There we go. All right, share screen. Share. Make sure everything looks good there. Oh, good morning, Chris. Bible time audio is good. Thank you. That was going to be my next question. Chris, I almost again on last night's show went an entire thing with my mute on. I mean, I caught it very early as I was doing my introduction, but I thought to myself, oh my goodness, with this audio thing. I can't be helped, Chris. Pray for me. Yes, oh no, but I was able to do it. And I highly encourage you to watch last night's show. It's titled Sin for Sin. Very interesting stuff. And I think you would have a lot of good questions concerning that. So if you have some time today and you feel compelled to do it, look at my video from last night. It's the problem of sin, of evil and the judgments of God, part 3 of part 1, Sin for Sin. But I'm just going to take a few minutes to make sure everyone can see the Torah portion okay, and it looks like it looks good from here, so I think we can get started. We are going to be reading Exodus 6:2 to 9:25, I believe, and I'm just going to confirm that on here. 1 second. Yeah, 6:2 through 9:35. And without further ado, let's get started. Elohim spoke to Moses and said to him, I am Yahweh, and I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as the El who suffices. I love that title for God. As to my name, Yahweh, I was not recognized by them. However, I set up my covenant with them to give to them the land of Canaan, the land of their sojourning, in which they had sojourned. Moreover, I myself have hearkened to the moaning of the sons of Israel, whom the Egyptians are making servants, and I am mindful of my covenant. Because remember, God sent the people of Israel into bondage so that they would be made ready to be God's chosen people and to associate with every single group of people who are oppressed. Because remember, the Hebrew people were chosen not because of any good deeds that they did, but because of God's choice as a channel through whom blessing would go out to everyone. And he didn't want them privileged to where, oh, we're God's chosen people, nothing bad can happen to us. No, he sent the Hebrew people into bondage and showed them the worst of the worst. So that way, when they were finally sent forth on their mission, they were finally able to fulfill their job requirements. They would look at the oppressed peoples of the world and know exactly how they felt. And that feeling was supposed to pass down from the actual generation that was in slavery all the way through to today. And as you guys know, I was raised in a Judeo-Christian household. Growing up, my dad is Jewish and my mom converted to Judaism before she married him. And we would spend all of the Jewish holidays with my dad's side of the family and then all of the Christian holidays with my mom's side of the family. So Growing up, even 2000, or not even 2000, but thousands of years after the Exodus, that responsibility and that sympathy is still passed down throughout the Jewish communities. And remember, he warned Abraham, or not warned him, but informed him that this would happen back in Genesis. He said, your descendants are going to be in bondage for 400 years. So this wasn't a accident. This wasn't God kind of just throwing up his hands and going, to heck with these people. This isn't him forgetting his covenant. This is him using evil for good. He's using evil to prepare the Hebrew people for their ultimate purpose. Therefore I say to the sons of Israel, I am Yahweh. Hence I will bring you forth from beneath the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rescue you from their service. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. I will take you to me as a people. I will become to you as Elohim, and you will realize that I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you forth from beneath the burdens of the Egyptians. Oh, and I also think it's interesting to note here that a couple sentences back, he didn't introduce himself as Yahweh to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but as the El who suffices. So this is God officially bringing forth his name, Yahweh, to the people. I will bring you to the land which I lift in my hand and swearing to give it to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And I will give it to you as a tenancy. I am Yahweh. And you'll notice every single time he declares his name, this is God making a oath to him by himself, meaning he's saying all of this is going to happen because I am Yahweh, because I am God. He is not a man that he should lie. So this is God giving the ultimate stamp of approval. This is going to happen. When Moses spoke thus to the sons of Israel, they did not hearken to Moses because of shortness of spirit and hard service. Yet Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Enter, speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that he may dismiss the sons of Israel from this land. Yet Moses spoke before Yahweh, saying, Behold, the sons of Israel do not hearken to me. How shall Pharaoh hearken to me when I am uncircumcised of lip? Remember, Moses was not a good public speaker. Many historians and Jewish scribes and philosophers said that he had a lisp and a stutter. So when he spoke, it sounded as if a stupid man was speaking, and he had a very hard time conveying his thoughts and emotions. So in his flesh right now, Moses is saying, well, I'm not a good debater. I'm not a good speaker. When I speak, it sounds ridiculous. How on earth am I going to convince this high official who is seen as a god in this land and convince him to do such things? But God has an answer. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron and instructed them as to the sons of Israel and as to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring forth the sons of Israel from the land of Egypt. These are the heads of their father's house. The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, are Hanok and Palul, Hezron and Carmi. These are the families of Reuben. The sons of Simeon are Jemuel, Jamin, Ohad, Jahin, Zohar, and Saul. The sons of the Canaanites, these are the families of Simeon. These are the names of the sons of Levi according to their genealogical records: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi are 137 years. The sons of Gershon are Labini and Shimei, according to their families. The sons of Kohath are Amram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel. And the years of the life of Kohath were 130 years. The sons of Merari are Mali and Mushi. These are the Levite families according to their genealogical records. Amram took Jochebed, his aunt, as a wife, and she bore for him Aaron, Moses, and Miriam, their sister. So this is Moses' family. Moses was a Levite, and Amram took Moses' mother, Jochebed, who is also a part of the Levite family, and bore Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. And I absolutely love that name, Jochebed, and that's how it's supposed to be pronounced in Hebrew. And it's actually the name I gave to a ladybug that always visits me at the Disney campground whenever I'm outside reading my Bible. It's weird, you guys. It's like clockwork. At 9 or 10 o'clock, if I'm outside of my campsite and I'm reading the Bible, this precious little ladybug will always come and land on my Bible and hang out with me as I read for at least an hour. So I decided to give it a name, and I chose Yoheved because I love that name so much. And the years of the life of Amram are 137 years. And the son of Izhar are Korah, uh, Nepheg, and Zachariah. The sons of Uzziel are Mishael, Elzaphan, and Setheri. Aaron took Elisheba, daughter of Amminadab and sister of Nashon, as his wife, and she bore for him Nabad, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamir. The sons of Korah are Asher, Alkan, and Abasap. These are the Korite families. Eleazar, son of Aaron, took to himself one from the daughters of Putel as his wife, and she bore for him Phinehas. These are the patriarchal heads of the Levites according to their families. This Aaron and this Moses are those to whom Yahweh said, "Bring forth the sons of Israel from the land of Egypt according to their hosts." They were the speakers to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to bring forth the sons of Israel from the land of Egypt, this Moses and this Aaron. So we just went through the entire Levite and a bit of Reuben and Simeon's lineage, and showed not only the genealogy of where Moses and Aaron came from, but is taking all of these heads together and sending them with Moses and Aaron as the talking heads. It came to be on that day when Yahweh spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt that Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "I am Yahweh. Speak to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, all that I am speaking to you." Yet Moses said before Yahweh, "Behold, I am uncircumcised of lip. How shall Pharaoh hearken to me?" Again, Moses is saying, how can this be? Yahweh said to Moses, "See, I appoint you an Elohim to Pharaoh." So now this is one of the first instances where God is calling a human being an Elohim or a God over someone. And remember, it's a lowercase g God. "And Aaron, your brother, shall come to be your prophet." So he's basically saying God's going to imbue Moses with power of authority over Pharaoh, and Aaron is going to speak for him. "You yourself shall speak all that I am instructing you, while Aaron, your brother, he shall speak to Pharaoh that he dismiss the sons of Israel from his land." So Moses is acting as a kind of Christ here, where Christ was only able to do that which he saw the Father doing and was only able to speak what God told him to. Moses is now doing a type of that. "And I myself shall stiffen the heart of Pharaoh." We're being told again by God that he himself is going to harden Pharaoh's heart. "And I will increase my signs and my miracles in the land of Egypt. Though Pharaoh shall not hearken to you, yet I will lay my hand on Egypt, and I will bring forth my hosts, my people, the sons of Israel from the land of Egypt with great judgments." Now, the tribe of doubt love to say that this is God prophesying. This is him foretelling the future, not directing the future. But God specifically says here, he's not predicting what will happen. He's declaring right now what will happen. "And all the Egyptians will know that I am Yahweh when I stretch out my hand over Egypt and I bring forth the sons of Israel from their midst." Remember Romans 9. "For this selfsame reason, Pharaoh, have I rose thee up, so that my name and my power would be proclaimed throughout all the earth." So God is using this right now, not only to free his people, but he is using Pharaoh and the hard-heartedness of all the Egyptians, because if you read in, I think it's Psalms one of the 100s in Psalms, where it says God hardened their hearts, speaking of the Egyptians, against his people. So God is using this right now and is purposefully hardening the heart of Pharaoh and the Egyptians against their will, so that his power and his name can be displayed throughout the entire earth. So Moses and Aaron did just as Yahweh instructed them, thus they did. Now Moses was 80 years old and Aaron was 83 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. So they're up in their old age too. That's another mark against them. Yahweh spoke to Moses and to Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh is speaking to you, saying, give your sign or miracle, then you will say to Aaron, take your rod and fling it before Pharaoh, that it may become a snake. Moses and Aaron entered to Pharaoh and did so just as Yahweh had instructed. Aaron flung his rod before Pharaoh and before his courtiers, and it became a snake. Pharaoh, however, called for a wise man and for the enchanters, and even they, the sacred scribes of Egypt, did so with their occultisms. Each man flung his rod, and they became snakes. Then Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So Aaron's snake ate all of the other snakes. This is God showing his dominance against all of the occultism, magic, and mysticism of man. Yet the heart of Pharaoh was steadfast. Pharaoh's heart hardened. Who did it? God. And he did not hearken to them, just as Yahweh had spoken. Again, if you look in other translations, it would say just as Yahweh had foretold or predicted. But in the actual language, it said just as God had spoken. And that's significant because remember, how did God create the world? He said a word and it came to be. Why is that important? Because God is showing how powerful he is. He makes things happen by speaking them into existence. His power is the actual power of manifestation. If you're in the New Age movement, you've probably heard of the term manifesting, where you just think about something and speak as if something is true and it will bring it into being. I used to believe this, but over time, I find that human beings don't have any power, and any power they do have is given to them from above. But God actually has manifesting power. Remember, he tells the end from the beginning. He said, let there be light, and light came into being. The very fact that he said it made it happen, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts if it was going to happen. He said it, it had to happen. So just as with the creation, thus also we have Yahweh dictating what is going to happen. He said that Pharaoh's heart would be hardened. It hardened. There was no other possible outcome. He spoke it, it happened. Then Yahweh said to Moses, gloried is the heart of Pharaoh. He has refused to dismiss the people. Go to Pharaoh in the morning. Behold, he shall be going forth to the waters, so you will station yourself to meet him on the shore of the waterway. And the rod which was turned into a serpent shall you take in your hand. Then you shall say to him, Yahweh, the Elohim of the Hebrews, sent me to you, saying, dismiss my people, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, you have not hearkened meanwhile. Thus says Yahweh, by this shall you know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I shall be smiting with the rod which is in my hand upon the waters, which are in the waterway, and they will be turned to blood. And the fish which are in the waterway shall die, and the waterway will stink, and the Egyptians will be too repelled to drink the waters from the waterway. And this is the Nile River, just so everyone knows which topographical stream we're talking about. This is the Nile River that he's going to turn to blood. When Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your rod and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the streams, over their waterways, over their ponds, and every confluence of waters, that they may become blood. Thus there will come to be blood in all the land of Egypt, and in wooden and in stone troughs. So every body of water is going to be turned into blood. Not only the Nile is where it starts, but every pond, every well, every animal watering trough is going to turn to blood like that. Moses and Aaron did so just as Yahweh had instructed, and raised up the rod and smote the waters which are in the waterway before the eyes of Pharaoh and before the eyes of his courtiers. And all the waters which are in the waterway were turned to blood. The fish that were in the waterway died, and the waterway stank, so that the Egyptians were unable to drink from the water, able to drink the waters from the waterway. And the blood came to be in all the land of Egypt. So spread out to every single place in Egypt, not just that city that they're in. Also, the sacred scribes of Egypt did so with their occultisms. So Pharaoh's magicians performed the same act. Hence the heart of Pharaoh was steadfast, and he did not hearken to them, just as Yahweh had spoken or declared. Pharaoh turned around, entered into his house, and did not set his heart even to this. Yet all the Egyptians dwelled round about the waterway for water to drink, for they were unable to drink from the waters of the waterway. When the 7 days were fulfilled after Yahweh's smiting of the waterway, then Yahweh said to Moses, Enter to Pharaoh, and you will say to him, Thus says Yahweh, dismiss my people, that they may serve me. And if you remain a refuser to dismiss them, behold, I will strike all of your territory with frogs. The waterway will swarm with frogs, and they will ascend and enter into your house and into your bedchamber and on your couch and into the house of your courtiers and onto your people, into your stoves and into your kneading troughs. And I don't have my study Bible with me right now, but if you notice, every single plague that God inflicts is him disgracing a high god of the Egyptian people. With the Nile and the waterway, one of the most powerful gods was the alligator god. I forget his name. I think it was Sekhmet. That doesn't sound right. I think that was the female lioness goddess, but one of the Nile gods, who was depicted as an alligator, was seen as one of the most powerful. And he was in charge of protecting the Nile River, which was the main source of life-giving water for all of Egypt. And God basically said, you have no power, I do. Smote the water and showed that not even this highly venerated God could keep things right if Yahweh, the Most High, said otherwise. And now we have the frogs, which is a disgrace against the frog god and goddess Haket and Kek. On you and all of your people and all of your courtiers shall frogs ascend. Then Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the waterways, and over the ponds, and bring up the frogs on the land of Egypt. And also, I would like to point out that the plagues last a short amount of time. So it lasted a week, the plague of blood. And now we're going to jump into the next plague, which also has a limited amount of time. And this echoes what's going to happen during the tribulation. Because remember, all of God's judgments are sharp, quick, and temporary. So when he strikes any sort of plague or calamity against a people, it's not prolonged where they suffer. It is sharp, it is quick, it has a purpose, and God does not stretch out any further any sort of torment or hurt than needs be. Same will be in the day of the tribulation too, where a lot of these plagues are actually going to make a reoccurrence. Now Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs ascended and covered the land of Egypt. Also the sacred scribes did so with their occultisms, and they brought up frogs over the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron and said, make an entry to Yahweh, that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people. Then I shall dismiss the people, and they may sacrifice to Yahweh. Moses said to Pharaoh, vaunt yourself over me as to when I should make entry for you and for your courtiers and for your people to cut off the frogs from you and from your houses. Only in the waterway shall they remain. So he said, tomorrow. So Pharaoh, his heart softened now, and he's going to try to make a deal with Moses. And he says, I'll do it tomorrow. So let's see what happens. And he said, be it according to your word, that you may know that there is no one like Yahweh, our Elohim. The frogs will withdraw from you and from your houses, from your courtiers and from your people. Only in the waterway shall they remain. Then Moses and Aaron went forth from Pharaoh, and Moses cried to Yahweh concerning the matter of the frogs, which he had appointed for Pharaoh. So Yahweh did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died from the houses, from the helmets, and from the fields. They piled them up, homer after homer, and the land stank. When Pharaoh saw that there came to be a mitigation, he hardened his heart. Remember, this is speaking from the relative. God said that he would harden his heart. And he hearkened not to them, just as Yahweh had spoken or declared. Yahweh's taking absolute responsibility for the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. Then Yahweh said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your hand with your rod and smite the soil of the land, and there will come to be lice in all the land of Egypt. And they did so. Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and smote the soil of the land, and there came to be lice on human and on beast. All the soil of the land came to be lice in all of the land of Egypt. Now the sacred scribes did so by their occultisms, so as to bring forth lice, yet they were unable. So now God is going into the plagues that the magicians cannot replicate. And I love how God works. He always starts small and then builds up over time. God is one of the best movie directors of all time. If he's the author and the director of this story, he puts any director, any storyteller to shame, because he starts off small. He goes with things that human magicians can easily replicate, and over time, they're building up. Now the magicians can't do it. Human beast, figure of Elohim. Yet the heart. Oh wait. Now the sacred scribes did so by their occultism, so as to bring forth lice. Yet they were unable, since there had come to be lice on human and on beast. And sacred scribes said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of Elohim." So now the very fact that they can't do it, they're basically saying, this God that your local annoyance Moses and Aaron told you about is the real deal. He is God. Yet the heart of Pharaoh was steadfast, hardened. He did not hearken to them, just as Yahweh had spoken. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning and station yourself before Pharaoh. Behold, he will be going forth to the waters. Then you will say to him, 'Thus says Yahweh, dismiss my people, that they may serve me. For should you not dismiss them, my people, behold, me sending on you, on your courtiers, on your people, and all your households, a mixture of flies. The houses of Egypt will be filled with a mixture of flies, and even the ground on which they are. Yet I will distinguish in that day the land of Goshen, on which my people are standing, that by no means there come to be mixture of flies, so that they may know that I am Yahweh within the land." So God's going to protect them from this plague, not only to show the Hebrews that this is their God, but to show the Egyptians that this is their God. And I will, wait, I am Yahweh within the land, and I will place a parting between my people and your people. Tomorrow shall this sign come to be. And Yahweh did so. A heavy mixture of flies came into the house of Pharaoh and into the house of the courtiers and into all of the land of Egypt. And the land was ruined because of the presence of the mixture of flies. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Go, sacrifice to your Elohim in the land." So again, Pharaoh's heart softens. Pharaoh's heart is very weak, as we can see. The only way that his heart could have been hardened, the only way that his evilness, I guess we could say, could not only come to be, but stay, is if God's hand physically touched him. So we're about to see Pharaoh's heart hardened again after it has been made soft. Yet Moses said, "It is not the established custom to do so, for we shall sacrifice that which is in abhorrence of the Egyptians to Yahweh our Elohim. Behold, we should sacrifice in abhorrence of the Egyptians before their eyes, would they not stone us? A way of 3 days shall we go into the wilderness, and we will sacrifice to Yahweh our Elohim, just as he has said to us." So basically he's saying, if we sacrifice to this unknown God of yours, it will be seen as an abomination to the Egyptians, because the Egyptians venerated false lowercase g gods. So Moses is using this as an excuse to have them go out of the land of Egypt as far as they can, so that they can worship the one and only. So Pharaoh said, "I shall dismiss you, that you may sacrifice to your Yahweh, your Elohim, in the wilderness, but you shall not go far, not far to go. Make an entry about me." And Moses said, "Behold, I am going forth from you, and I will make an entry to Yahweh, that the mixture of flies withdraw from Pharaoh, from his courtiers, and from his people tomorrow. But Pharaoh must not continue to trifle in not dismissing the people to sacrifice to Yahweh." Then Moses went forth from Pharaoh, and he entreated Yahweh. And Yahweh did according to the word of Moses, and the mixture of flies withdrew from Pharaoh, from his courtiers, and from his people. Not one remained. Yet Pharaoh hardened his heart even at this time, and he did not dismiss the people. Again, the hand of God, hardening a person's heart against their will. Pharaoh wanted to let the people go, but God said, "Not yet." Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Enter to Pharaoh, and you will speak to him. Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, dismiss my people that they may serve me. For if you remain a refuser to dismiss them, and you still are holding fast to them, behold, the hand of Yahweh is coming to be on your cattle, which are in the field, on the horses, on the donkeys, on the camels, on the herd, and on the flock, with an exceedingly heavily plague. Yet Yahweh will distinguish between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt. Not a thing shall die of all belonging to the sons of Israel." So, not all of the cattle in the land, but just the cattle belonging to that of the Egyptians will face a plague unlike any the land has ever seen. So, Yahweh set an appointed time, saying, "Tomorrow Yahweh shall do these things in the land." And Yahweh did this on the morrow. All the cattle of the Egyptians died, yet of the cattle of the sons of Israel did not die. Then Pharaoh sent, and behold, not even one had died from the cattle of Israel. Yet the heart of Pharaoh hardened again, and he did not dismiss the people. Yahweh said to Moses and to Aaron, "Take for yourself both of your hands full of lambkin quicklime, and Moses will sprinkle it toward the heavens before the eyes of Pharaoh, and it will become a powder over all of the land of Egypt. Then there will come to be on human and on beast boils bubbling out into pustules in all the land of Egypt." So they took the lambkin quicklime and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it towards the heavens, and there came to be boils budding out into pustules on human and on beast. Now the sacred scribes were unable to stand before Moses in view of the boils, for the boil came to be on the sacred scribes in all of Egypt. Yet Yahweh made the heart of Pharaoh steadfast, so that he did not hearken to them, just as Yahweh had spoken to Moses. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "Rise early in the morning, station yourself before Pharaoh, and you will say to him, Thus says Yahweh, Elohim of the Hebrews, dismiss my people that they may serve me. For at this time I am sending all my strokes into your heart and your courtiers and your people, in order that you shall know that there is no one like me in the entire earth. For by now I could have put forth my hand and smitten you and your people with a plague, so that you were suppressed from the earth. Nevertheless, for this sake I keep you standing, in order that to make you see my vigor and my name be retained or related in the entire earth. Still you are behaving haughtily against my people, so that not to dismiss them. Behold, me causing it to rain about this time tomorrow an exceedingly heavy hail, such as has not come in Egypt from the day of her founding until now. And now provide your cattle strong shelter and all that you have in the field. Every human and beast which is found in the field is not gathered towards the house. On them hail will descend and they will die." So God actually tells Pharaoh to warn people about this, so that humans and animals may not be killed by this. So we have God providing a way out of this particular plague. The one fearful of the word of Yahweh among the courtiers of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee to the houses. Yet he who was not setting his heart on the word of Yahweh, he forsook his servants and his cattle in the field. Yahweh said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand to the heavens, that hail may come down to be in all the land of Egypt, on human and on beast, and all herbage of the field in the land of Egypt." So Moses stretched out his rod to the heavens, and Yahweh, he gave thunderclaps, and hail and fire ran down earthward. Thus Yahweh rained hail over the land of Egypt, and the hail came with fire taking hold of itself in the midst of the hail, exceedingly heavy, such as not come into the land of Egypt since it became a nation. Now the hail smote in all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, from human to beast, unto the hail. Also, the hail smote all herbage of the field and broke every tree of the field. I think that's where it ends. No, we're going to 35. Oops. But in the land of Goshen, where the sons of Israel were, no hail came. And this is also interesting because God's showing his godhood by making the impossible possible. He took hail, which is large frozen blocks of ice, and set them on fire. When Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and for Aaron and said to them, I have sinned this time. Wait, yeah. When then Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron and said to them, I have sinned this time. So Pharaoh's heart softened. Again, make an entry to Yahweh, for this is enough of their coming to be thunderclaps of Yahweh or of Elohim and hail. Let me dismiss you. You shall not continue to stay. Moses said to him, As I go forth from the city, I shall spread my palms to Yahweh, and the thunderclap shall halt, and the hail shall come no longer, so that you may know that the earth is Yahweh's. As for you and your courtiers, I know that you are not yet fearing because of the presence of Yahweh Elohim. And the flax and the barley were smitten, for the barley was in the pollinated ear, and the flax was in the pod. Yet the wheat and the spelt were not smitten, for they were in blade. When Moses went forth from Pharaoh from the city, and he spread his palms to Yahweh, then the thunderclaps halted, and the hail and the rain was not poured forth earthward. Now Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunderclaps had halted, yet he continued to sin and hardened his heart, he and his courtiers. God hardened his heart again. So the heart of Pharaoh was steadfast, and he did not dismiss the sons of Israel, just as Yahweh had spoken by means of Moses. And that concludes the Torah portion of this parashot. And it looks like we have a lot of people in the chat today. Let's see what everyone's saying. We have Mac the Human. Shabbat Shalom, Mac. Thank you so much for coming, brother. I was not recognized by them. Wow. Yeah. That's the blinding hand of God for you, Chris. Israel was like, new phone, who this? Oh, yeah. God didn't want them to see him until that particular moment. Because remember, in the wisdom of God, the world knew not God. Same also here. Seeing that hungry people are fed is a holy profession, Mac. Be proud. It is. It is. God bless waiters and waitresses and cooks of fast food and restaurant establishments. Tenacity, possession of land or property as a tenant. Interesting. Yep. Also, when I hear tenacity, I also think of like audacity, like someone who has the vigor to go forth. I don't know how that got intertwined with that word, but we'll see. I never knew Moses wasn't a good speaker. Yeah. He had a speech impediment. He couldn't talk, so he had Aaron speak for him. Don't be fooled by the Prince of Egypt or the Ten Commandments, the movies. Moses never went and spoke on his own. He always had his brother speak on his behalf, which I never knew about either until I did my own Torah study, because it says it right there in the Torah. He admits, I'm not a good speaker. What should I do? And God specifically says, you will have Aaron as a prophet. And a prophet, remember, is just a spokesperson. So the prophets of God are just his spokespeople. I remember from Sunday school, he had a relative speak for him sometimes, I think, or he wanted it, and God said no. I forgot exactly. No, God said use Aaron as a prophet for you. Interesting contradiction that God, according to the Bible, wants spotless and free from blemish sack animals, but he seems to use humans that have blemishes. It is. Because I think animals and humans have different uses for God. Because remember, we're being built up as human beings to be like God. Animals cannot be like God, so there can be blemish, non-blemishes in them, and the blemishes are just physical. They aren't moral, so to speak. Human beings have no choice but to be blemished. But that's an interesting point you brought up there. But that's also God showing what he wants. He ultimately wants human beings to be blemishless and perfect, both physically and morally. But that's not how things work. Not even with God. You can't just have um, human beings in the right way right away. And God goes through a process since we're created beings. Remember, He's the potter, we're the clay. And the potter constantly has to mold and form and break and build up the object of his making until it is perfect. So, this is how God chooses to make us perfect, by starting us off marred and then building us up over time. My wife also gets visited by ladybugs and finds it significant. That is very cool, Taylor. It is really cool. The ladybugs are, I think the spiritual meaning is spiritual growth and protection. They're very, very significant biblically. Look up biblical significance of ladybugs. And we have a Saint Tommy here. A very blessed Shabbos to you, Saint Tommy. Thank you so much for coming. Moses stuttered, I was told. Yeah, he had a speech impediment. I stutter too. But by the grace of God, when I speak on here, I don't tend to stutter as much. And that's the there it is. That is the hand of God working in me right now. Why all the types of Christ have defects? Because there are types, so to speak. The reason why all the types of Christ have defects is so that the ultimate Christ, the very thing that they're emulating, can have the sole title of sinless and blemishlessness. And so that he can have a position that's far above every other Christ type. We have Moonlight Man. Very blessed Shabbos to you, Moonlight Man. Thank you so much for coming. What exactly is the topic? We're covering the first couple of plagues of Exodus today. So we had all the way from the waters of Egypt turning to blood, and we just ended on the fiery hail. Because there is no perfect man, Chris, we all have faults and strengths. My father stuttered and was treated as a, I know what you mean. It impacted him for life, and then me too. That intergenerational God curse thing. Well, it's not necessarily a curse in that God didn't like your dad and made bad things happen to him, although it is a curse in the fact that it was a holding back. Because if you read what curse means in Hebrew, one of the definitions is to hold back. And that holding back is to be used for the betterment of your father, those around him, and for you. Because remember, God shapes us through our circumstances. And you said yourself that that affected you somehow. And that's part of your journey that God has you on. What that particular journey is, what you're supposed to specifically learn from that, I don't know. But rest assured, it is God given, and it will be a blessing to you and your father. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you find it. Sorry to hear that, Chris. People can be so cruel. Yeah. And my stutter held me back from speaking to people too. It became so frustrating for me to try to talk to people. No one ever really made fun of me except for my family, but that's familial hate love, as I like to call it. But yeah, it's stuttering is, it's frustrating because you want to get your point across, and it makes you come off sounding, as you said, hard R. But over time, it humbles you, and it's good to slow down when you're talking and not be quick to speech. That's one of the um, that's advice given in the book of Proverbs, not to be slow to speak and quick to listen. And my stutter has actually taught me to slow down, to think through what I'm trying to say, and to be very, very tempered in my speech. Moonlight Man, we are reading some of the Old Testament and some matching New Testament according to some Jewish traditions that I am not qualified to speak on. Well, I'm not qualified to speak on them either, but here we are. Look below the video and it says what's being read. Yeah, Moonlight Man, in the future, I do put all of the scripture in the description box on what we're covering. I read through the first part and then look at the comments and read through them. And then I move on to the next part and do the same thing until the end. So we just finished Exodus. We'll be touching on, I think it's Ezekiel next. I have empathy for him, understanding how frustrating that must have been for him. Yeah, and also, Chris, the reason why all of the spokespeople and types of Christ are marred is so that no credit goes to the human being. It's all of God. So when people see Moses and look at his stutter, they'll think, just another person. And then they see all the things that he spoke of coming to be. And they'll go, wow, that this must be of God. Because all the scripture verses now are coming back to me after your question. Why does God have all of his spokespeople marred? He has them all marred so that no person is given credit for the wonders that they foretell and help bring into being. Well, relatively speaking, help bring into being, because it's all of God, but he performs them through people. He does all of these miracles through Moses and Aaron. He does all of the saving and conciliation of the world through Christ Jesus. And Christ Jesus is supposed to be the only one who is sinless, because only a sinless person dying for the sake of the irreverent could have possibly brought about the salvation of all. Again, please see my video from last night called Sin for Sin, and it explains it beautifully. And yeah, it is frustrating for him. But again, this is for God to display his greatness, not man's. And as we see through the readings nowadays in the movies, we're doing exactly what God didn't want us to do. Like when you see, who is it, Mel Gibson? Not Mel Gibson. He played Christ in Passion of the Christ. When you watch the Ten Commandments or the Prince of Egypt, Moses is raised to a stature that God never intended for him to be raised to. He's depicted as young, good looking, and remember, he's 80 in this biblical story. He's shown as being a good speaker. He goes up against Pharaoh by himself in the Prince of Egypt, when really he had help from his brother. He didn't have the ability to speak very clearly. So whenever we think of Moses, we say, look at what Moses did. I mean, go to any church and they'll say, be like Moses. Look at what Moses did. Look at what this flawed human being did. And they don't give all of the credit to God. They may say that they do. They may think that they give all the credit to God. But again, their focus is on the human. And not just the human, but their focus is on a false depiction of Moses. Now, all of the people that God chooses are marred and flawed so that God gets all of the glory, and no human being ever looks to another human being for greatness. Always look to God for help and wonders and greatness. Torah reading, which include one portion of the Torah books, another portion from the Old Testament, and a New Testament reading. Yeah. Are you letting Moonlight Man know? Yeah, this is called a Parashot, Moonlight Man, and it is the yearly reading that Jews do, where they read a portion of Torah, a portion of Haftorah, and then if there happen to be Messianic Jews, they'll read a portion of the New Testament, and all of them line up together to create one big story. Because the Haftorah, just a brief study, the Haftorah was created for the Jews to continue to study Torah when the Torah was banned during their exile. I think it was in either Assyrian or Babylonian captivity. All Torahs were banned and destroyed, but they were allowed to keep the minor prophets, their history books, all of the Psalms, all of the Proverbs. So they took portions of the Psalms and history and the prophets, and they actually made their own Torah out of what they said. And again, this is the wisdom of God. He knew exactly what was going to, well, not just knew, but he declared what was going to happen, and he gave the cure for it. He said, there's going to come a point in time where my holy scriptures are going to be banned and destroyed and taken away from my people. So I will make sure that they still are able to study Torah from other books. And that's exactly what the Haftorah is. All right, I looked into there, saw a handful of verses, but the topic point, not trying to be rude, just vague. Yeah, there is no necessarily topic point. We're just reading through the entire 5 books of Moses, as the Hebrews would do in their yearly reading of the Torah. So if you want a topic, the topic is more or less the beginning of the plagues of Egypt. Haven't read it this week, not sure what it is about. Smiting of the waterway. Interesting. Doesn't smiting always mean kill? No, smiting actually means to hit, to strike with great force. So when God smites, he doesn't necessarily kill, but he hits, he disciplines, he brings great travail against someone. This word is also used, even though it's not the Hebrew word, the Greek equivalent of it is used to speak of one of the synagogue officials in the New Testament who smote Jesus on the cheek. So smote isn't to kill, smote is to hit with great force. Refers to the weekly Torah portion read synagogues during the Jewish Sabbath. Okay, so we're just going back over the stuff that we were saying. Not Chris, but Google. Okay, now I'm scrolling. Thanks, Taylor. Lice everywhere on everything. Yeah, I was petrified of lice growing up. It really tormented me thinking that I would get lice. And I've always had long hair, me and my 2 younger sisters. So when we got lice, we got it bad. I prefer flies to lice. Yeah, flies are annoying. Lice is worse than Gehenna. Mitch Hedberg had to deal with the Calola infestation once. Cutest infestation ever. Hebrews and Egyptians should have already been convinced that all one group died and all other group, all firstborn died. Humans and animals, that should have convinced all. So yeah, God in charge. Yep. But God also hardened their hearts too. Even though it doesn't emphasize it. Again, if you look at the Psalm, it's in the 100s. It says that God hardened the Egyptians' hearts against his people. And it all depended on Pharaoh's decision. Because I'm sure at that time, Chris, there were many Egyptians that were like, we're in the wrong here. There's no way that we can deny it. But it all depended on Pharaoh's decision. A plague of koalas, the 8th plague. Ooh, drop bears just falling from the sky. Could you imagine? They destroyed the firstborn eucalyptus. Oh, not the eucalyptus. Well, the cattle was already dead. Yeah, and at the time, I think they were also building the cattle back up. So after they had all died, they had acquired new cattle and they were trying to get them going, and then they died. Well, not all of them, because there were some Egyptians, as we read, that hearkened and brought all of their cattle into the barns or whatever shelter they had, and then they went into their homes. But it's very interesting, considering God could have healed Moses' speech, but instead used Moses and his brother. Again, this is specifically so no person can put a man on a pedestal. And God does all of his best miracles through the impossible. And that's the only way for it to be a miracle. The fact that God was able to get across the message from a man, even if it was to have his brother speak for him, through a man who was so flawed that he couldn't speak clearly, goes to show the truthfulness of Yahweh and everything that he did in his existence. But yeah, I marvel at that too, Chris. The fact that God chooses broken vessels to do all of his wonders in, and that includes us. Let no one on here ever think that because we're in the body of Christ, that somehow means that we have a better understanding, a better knowing, a better ability. If anything, the reason why we're in the body of Christ is because we are less than everyone. It's actually a very humbling position to be in. And I can definitely say that I, for one, have my shortcomings. I, for one, for sure have my shortcomings. I have my speech impediment. I have my own personal sense that I struggle with. I have my own flawed understanding of some things. I don't know everything. So yeah, may every single time we see God operating in a broken vessel, may it remind us that we are not all that in a bag of chips, so to speak. Let it humble us, and let it be an opportunity for us to give the glory and the praise to our Father, as opposed to falsely assuming it is of us. And with that, we will move on to the next Torah portion, which is Ezekiel 28:25 through 29:21. That's a lot of 20s. So let me try to get all that pulled up. If y'all heard that, that was my stomach. I haven't had breakfast yet. So I apologize for the noisy tummy. 28:25. Oopsies. Taylor shall not live by egg McMuffin alone. That's right. We do not live by food or the blessed egg McMuffin alone, but by the word of God. The word of God is sustaining me right now, Chris. Share screen. Let me make sure everything is good. And we're good. All right, 28:25 through 29:21, I believe. Hey, I got a good memory. Thus says my Lord Yahweh, when I convene the house of Israel from the peoples among them, among whom they are scattered, and I am hallowed among them before the eyes of the nations, they will dwell on their ground which I gave to my servant to Jacob, and they will dwell on it in trust. They will build houses and plant vineyards, and they will dwell in trust when I execute judgments on all who disdain them from the ground about them. So this is a view of Israel being protected. This is a type of Israel being protected during the plagues of Egypt. They will know that I am Yahweh, their Elohim. And remember, this is what God said. He sent the plagues so that people would know who was God. The 20th year, in the 10th month, on the 12th of the month, the word of Yahweh came to me, saying, Son of humanity, set your face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and prophesy against him and against Egypt and all of it. Speak, and you will say, Thus says my Lord Yahweh, Behold, I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great monster reclining in the midst of its waterways, which says, Mine is my waterway, and I made it for myself. So it's hearkening back to Pharaoh's self-righteousness. It's hearkening back to his hubris and thinking that he's in control of everything. I will put gaffs in your cheeks, and I will cause the fish of your waterways to cling to your scales. I will bring you up from the midst of your waterways, and all the fish of your waterways shall cling to your scales. And I will abandon you to the wilderness, and all the fish of your waterways. You shall lie fallen on the open field, and you shall not be gathered nor brought together. I will give you as food to the land animal and the flyer of the heavens. And again, this is hearkening back to the crocodile god, who is seen as one of the most powerful. And Pharaoh, whoever the Pharaoh was at that time, was also seen as a high god equal to that of the high gods of Egypt. So he's basically saying, comparing Pharaoh to the crocodile god, and saying, just as you think you're this big daddy who's able to swim through the waterways and make all things as you want, I am going to turn it on its head. I'm going to have all the fish that are subject to you die. I'm going to have them clog your throat. I'm going to have you made into a corpse where the lowly animals will feed upon you. This is basically God asserting his dominance, saying, you're not in control. I am. Then all the dwellers of Egypt will know that I am Yahweh. Again, this is how people are brought to a knowledge of God, through his judgments. Because you were a support staff of reed to the house of Israel. When they grasped you by the palm, you would splinter, and you would rend open on their shoulders. When they leaned on you, you would break, and you would make all of their waists totter. Therefore, thus says the Lord Yahweh, behold, I shall bring a sword against you, and I will cut off from you human and beast, so that the land of Egypt will become a desolation and a waste. Then they will know that I am Yahweh, because you say, the waterway is mine, and I made it. Again, hearkening back to Pharaoh's hubris and self-righteousness. Therefore, behold, I am against you, and against your waterways, and I will give over the land of Egypt to waste, sword, and desolation, from Migdol to Syene, and as far as the boundary of Cush. No foot of human shall pass through it, and no foot of a beast shall pass through it, and it shall not be dwelt in for 40 years. And I will give over the land of Egypt to desolation in the midst of desolated lands, and her cities shall become as desolation in the midst of deserted cities 40 years. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations, and toss them away among the lands. For thus says my Lord Yahweh, at the end of the 40 years I shall convene the Egyptians from the peoples where they are scattered. I will reverse the captivity of Egypt, and I will restore them to the land of Pathros, to the land of their origin. So even in his, again, we're seeing the graciousness and the love of God for his creation, and the love God has for his enemies. He limits their punishment. Again, he limits the punishment to 40 years, and then he restores the Egyptians. Again, there's so many verses where God sends judgments against people, and it's for their restoration. How anyone could attribute eternal conscious suffering with God is beyond me, when you can clearly see types of God's grace. You see him, how he treats his enemies. They always stop at the judgment and say that that's the end all be all. They don't see it for what it really is, which is the process. It's the journey that God takes to turn his enemies into his friends. And it's both heartbreaking and beautiful to see it, that people can't grasp it. It's also beautiful to see God proving it right in front of your face, if you only have the eyes to see. I will reverse the captivity of Egypt, and I will restore them to the land of Pathros, to the land of their origin. There they will be a lowly kingdom. Of all the kingdoms it shall be lowest, and it shall not lift itself over the nations any longer. I will decrease them, so that they will not hold sway among the nations. No longer shall it be the trust to the house of Israel, reminding them of their depravity when they turned around after them. They will know that I am the Lord Yahweh. It came to be in the 27th year, in the first month, on day 1 of the month, that the word of Yahweh came to be, saying, Son of humanity, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, has made his army serve with great service against Tyre. Every head was made bald and every shoulder scraped. Yet no reward has come to him or to his army from Tyre for the service which he served against it. Therefore, thus says my Lord Yahweh, behold, I will give to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, the land of Egypt, and he will carry away her superabundance, and loot, and plunder her plunder, and it will be the reward for his army, as his wage for which he served. I give him the land of Egypt. For what they did for me, averring is my Lord Yahweh. In the day I shall make a horn sprout from the house of Israel, and I shall give you an opening of the mouth in their midst. Then they will know that I am Yahweh. And that concludes the Haftorah portion. So many, they will know that I am the Lord Yahweh, and so often they live as if not. Yep. In the wisdom of God, the world knew not God. God doesn't want us all to know the truth until his set appointed time. And that'll be one of the first questions I ask him when I see him. I want to ask him, what's what does the end game look like? Like, we already have an idea of what the end game is. We know that all will eventually be saved and come to a knowledge of the truth, but I want to see the wisdom behind it, I guess I should say. I want to see why things had to be this way. I want God to explain it all to me. And as Ace Theo would say, now do you understand? Like, I sincerely do want to understand. And God willing, when I am lifted up into the air to meet the Lord, that's one of the first things that's brought to my knowledge and settled. And now we conclude it with the book of Luke. In the book of Luke, we're going to cover Luke 11:14 through 22. Chapter 5. 9, 10, 11. And what did I say, 14 through 22? 14 through 22. All right. Luke's account. There we go. And he was casting out a demon, and it was a mute one. Now it occurred at the coming out of the demon that the mute man speaks, and the throngs marvel. Yet some of them say, by Beelzebul, the chief of the demons, is he casting out the demons. Yet he answering said, how can Satan be casting out Satan? Yet others, trying him, sought a sign out of heaven from him. Yet he, aware of their cognitions, said to them, every kingdom divided against itself is being desolated, and house against house is falling. Now if Satan also is divided against himself, how shall his kingdom stand, seeing that you are saying, I am casting out demons by Beelzebul? Now if by Beelzebul I'm casting out demons, by whom are your sons casting them out? Therefore they shall be your judges. Now if I, by the finger of God, am casting out demons, consequently the kingdom of God outstrips in time to you. Whenever the strong one, armed, may be guarding his own courtyard, his possessions are in peace. Yet if ever a stronger than he, coming on, should be conquering him, he is taking away his panoply, in which he has confidence, and is distributing his spoils. And I think that concludes that portion. Yep, all the way to 22. And I see why they compared that with this, because it's showing the it's echoing the Egyptians' attempts of copying God's miracles. And there came a point in time when they were no longer able to do that. Basically, Jesus is saying that only God is able to do these things. Only those who have the power of God and the authority given by God are able to do these things. And we saw this echoed in the previous Torah study, or not Torah study, but the previous Torah portion, that there came a time where the magicians were no longer able to copy it. Thus also, demons are not able to cast out other demons. Satan's not able to go against his own messengers. So if a demon is actually being dispelled from someone, it can be no one other than God. Thus also, in the story of the plagues, No one else could copy the wonders. It only could have come from God, and because it only could have come from God, that's how God brought his revelation of himself to the people. And that's what Jesus was doing by casting out the demons. The whole entire point of casting out the demons, not only to help people, was to prove his messiahhood, was to show that he was of God because he was able to do these things. And I think that will conclude this part of the Torah portion, the Parashot reading for today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the conversations in the comments. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you all have a blessed Shabbos, and I hope to see you all this coming Wednesday. We're going to be covering the next couple of portions of Matthew. And I think we're covering 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And then everything will be same as usual. We don't have any big events coming up that I know of. So the Torah and book reading portions I usually do throughout the week, the Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday shows, are back to normal. I hope to see everyone here. And if not, I hope to see everyone on other channels if I happen to come across them. So love, grace, and peace, and have a blessed rest of your day.